Hello students, welcome to Current Affairs series with Dr. Vivek Rana. We will be decoding some important current affairs from state exams perspective in this particular series. So topic for today's discussion is Global Peace Index 2025. सो आप सभी जानते हैं कि अल्टीमेटली पीस एक ऐसा वर्ड है जिसकी कॉनोटेशंस आपके पर्सनल एज वेल एज सोसाइटल लेवल पे इंटरप्रेट की जाती है. पीस इन सिंपल टर्म्स वी कैन से स्टेट ऑफ कामनेस. In IR or you could say current affairs perspective, the simple definition of peace could be absence of war or violence in a particular region. So basically this index ranks countries based on the global situations prevailing in that scenario, and both external internal war, you could say security threats, are taken into account. So in this topic, there is not much to do from, you could say, conceptual point of view. You just need to mug up which three countries are doing best, which are the bottom two, and what exactly is the India's standing at the global level. So basically, this index can be used in essays, it can be highlighted, and in factual part also in state services examination. As the image you could see, it's even though it stands for peace, but all the images are directly or indirectly related to the ongoing violence, civil rebellions, or the wars. So first and foremost, how this index is prepared, there are roughly 23 broad indicators across three specific categories. So these three categories are taken into account when they rank countries. So first and foremost is the most important one, societal safety and security, because in a society, if there is no peace, there could be no growth and development consequently. It's rightly said, without peace is the prerequisite for any country to grow. So basically the broad interpretation of this category is the crime rates, political stability, and refugee impact, because once these three scenarios intertwine, typically societal safety and security at times comes into a threat. So basically the countries which would be ranked higher would have a long political stability. There would be no civil wars or ongoing refugee crisis as such. The second foremost is a dynamic entity, because we can say just like environment change is the only constant, similarly in IR as well as in the geopolitics, the goalpost keeps on shifting. So basically the ongoing domestic and international conflicts is the second broad parameter, and if we look at India's perspective, this factor has been in limelight in recent history. So basically war, acts of terrorism, as well as civil unrest prevailing due to myriad reasons could be the reasons why there is a tussle going on between state and the civilians, as well as between state and the different states across the borders. The third angle is militarization. Typically, your military expenditure trend also gives you a fair idea that on which direction country is prospering. So weapon import, export, and number of armed personnel employed also gives an indirect picture that what is the state of the, you could say, economy. Typically a country, if it's investing heavily on arms as well as on military expenditure, more or less it is perceiving some deep enemies which might be due to some border skirmishes, or you could say competitiveness, or you could say some global geopolitics coming into the play. So basically the most peaceful countries, you will never see them investing heavily on military personnel or acquiring some state of art technologies. They would be quite content and satisfied with the basic architecture of their spending. So basically these three broad parameters are what the shape the global peace index, and this is a quite an old index because it's been almost 2 decades that it has been featuring regularly on all leading newspapers. So in such topics, you just have to mug up the name of institutions, because typically in state services, when they frame a question based on the index or report, they typically highlight the name of institution and they shuffle it with some other. So basically it's Institute for Economics and Peace. So because at times the word economics, when we come into the picture, we tend to link it with monetary, fiscal policies, growth rate, budgeting, but the key word here is peace as well. So in short, it is called IEP. And basically, it's an international think tank which is headquartered in Sydney, Australia. Now, its current index, we have seen over the years the number of countries assessed jumped from 140s to 150. Currently, in the 2025 index, there were 163 states and territories which were surveyed, and you could roughly say 99% of world's population was taken into account while preparing this comprehensive index. So, more or less, we can say some island nations in the you could say Pacific have been just ignored. Otherwise, more or less, the almost all densely populated inhabited regions are part of this global activity. Now, findings are not much of a surprise. If you have been following this current affair, you would see for last 17 years, this index has been dominated by Iceland. So there is no surprises. The exact score is 1.095, even though you don't need to mug up the exact figures or scale, but broad trend, you should be absolutely clear that which are the top three performers. So it's the Ireland, New Zealand, Austria, Switzerland, Singapore, Portugal, Denmark, Slovenia, Finland. This is the whole list. So more or less, you could say the picture it is trying to present is that basically it's the European mainland, parts of Southeast Asia, and you could say the New Zealand, which comes in Oceania region, are the peaceful regions to inhabit for any person who wants peace in his requisites. Now the question arises why Iceland has been dominating for 17 consecutive years in Global Peace Index. Basically, it's a small island. It does not share any geographical territory. It has a long history of political stability. Democracy principles are quite strong. There is no civil unrest of any kind whatsoever. And so basically, all three broad parameters, it is having a green tick. So that's why there are no surprises, and quite rightly we can say that Iceland is the deserving #1 country, even though some skeptics might raise issue regarding the feature of Ireland in the given list or Portugal at time, because the rest of the countries more or less over the years have been quite stable politically, as well as they do not share any hostile international relations with the neighboring countries, and they have quite a good diplomatic channels as well. So basically, the thing to mug up from examination perspective is that it's the Iceland which has dominated this year's ranking. Now coming to the least peaceful nations, because currently out of 163 nations, the bottom 3-4 countries are no surprise, because we have seen there is an ongoing unending war between Russia and Ukraine, and numerous diplomatic channels have tried to break deadlock. Even recently, Trump has been putting a lot of aggressive tactics to make peace between two powerhouses, but to no end. So Russia and Ukraine currently are the bottom two, and it's quite surprising. One of the most powerful countries today finds itself in the lowest spectrum of this index because of ongoing war. And apart from that, the recent you could say the civil war has conflict which has engulfed the, you could say, upper Africa, Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Yemen in West Asia, where the Arab Spring started long back, have been the regions of instability. So basically, life in this for the civilians in these particularly disturbed areas has not been too great, and there is no exaggeration in saying that these regions, due to their current ongoing armed conflicts, have made life miserable for ordinary citizens residing there, even though some might say that the name of Palestine, Israel could have been there in the list, but they are not currently in the bottom 5. So make sure you just mug up Russia, Ukraine, which is quite easy to relate. Now coming to India's standing, what exactly is the rank of India's in global peace perspective? It's quite disappointing to know that India is still lagging behind in this particular index. India was ranked at dismal 115 out of 163 nations. At times, this rank may not denote the true specter, because yes, this is the year where we have seen Operation Sindoor unfolding. There have been a lot of violence in Manipur, and we have seen that due to AFSPA, JNK, and certain northeast region continue to remain disturbed, but overall still below 100 ranking is what India rightly deserved in this particular spectrum. But still, nevertheless, if you see the war spectator dominating in this particular is, so this you have to accept this ranking once again with pinch of salt. So hopefully, in coming years, a better sense would prevail. Current disasters have once again highlighted that we need to balance our socio-economic parameters more than our, you could say, war parameters. Diplomacy can play a quite active role in minimizing such conflicts and ensuring that there is a long-lasting peace in not only in India but in entire South Asia or Asia as a whole. Only then we could take on and say that yes, this is going to be Asia's century. And the current, you could say, geopolitics and the trade wars which are unfolding, it's quite imperious for any developing nation which aspire to be developed that it should minimize its conflicts and reduce, you could say, tensions, especially related to borders, and even the ongoing civil issues should be addressed by the good governance model at priority. So hopefully, these are some lessons which a country should imbibe and take these negative rankings as well in positive stride and stress to improve in coming years. So this is what we had in today's State Current Affairs series. We will be back soon with another value addition lecture. So keep following us. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.